These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackie and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
Wow. We have major breaking Twins news to start this live scoop session here. So it's usually we record these scoop sessions with Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Sports Department every Tuesday and Thursday. We're doing something unprecedented. We're trying to break our YouTube channels here. So it looks like this is working, Dex. We are currently live on both the Score North YouTube channel and the Score North Twin Show YouTube channel, where you will also be able to find the audio version of this on both feeds as well. But an announcement just came down that
Juan Soto?
No, it's not Juan Soto, unfortunately.
Oh,
no.
Shoot.
Yeah.
Crap.
So maybe that's tomorrow's announcement for the Twins. Dave St. Peter, longtime president of the Minnesota Twins, is stepping down. He will become essentially an internal advisor for the team after 22 years as team president. So he'll be a strategic advisor. Derek Falvey gets elevated. Derek Falvey essentially has a Theo Epstein role with the Minnesota Twins now, where he will be the president of the organization, the president of both baseball operations and business operations. Jeremy Zoll, who's been the assistant general manager, kind of quietly behind the scenes, elevated to general manager, replacing Thad Levine. We got Declan, our resident Twins beat podcaster. We got our guy Dukes here, sports dad. So Dukes, we'll start with you, and then Dex chime in as well. You guys have both been kind of hearing rumblings about this, but Derek Falvey, almighty now, the leader of the Minnesota Twins' entire organization.
Not necessarily a surprise. So a few weeks ago, I alluded to some relatively big Twins news that I expected to take place. Maybe it took longer than I expected. It was this, based on Falvey already behind the scenes, working enough on the business side of the world of Derek Falvey. I laid that out previously. So that part of the equation doesn't surprise me whatsoever. Remaining on in an advisory role doesn't shock me either. The question is, when new ownership eventually takes over, how long does Dave stay on? Does he help with that transition? But like 2 years from now, is Dave St. Peter a part of the Twins organization? Probably tough to say that. The one minor surprise I would have made just slightly, Daniel Adler, the betting favorite to ascend up to title of general manager, not Jeremy Zoll. Both guys had the title of assistant general manager. I just thought Adler had a little bit of a front step on Zoll, but I guess not like a big shock. Zoll and Adler have had their fingerprints all over the 26-man roster going back the last few years.
So here's my question. Does this, for Zoll, does this put him in the role that Thad Levine was the last couple of years, or does this actually give him more baseball power? Because if Derek Falvey is in charge of two departments, that's going to spread his time a little bit more thin. I would think it would make you rely on your GM more. My second thought is this. This feels like the Pohlads setting up their cabinet to how they want it to be structured when they sell the team, in hopes that the new people that come on and buy the team will just keep it status quo. I mean, Derek Falvey's, in some ways, his equity in the organization has now gone up 50% because he's in charge of two things instead of one. So this feels like a very, if I may use some 2024 terminology, gentlemen, this feels like a very intentional move meant to sort of set things up. But I am genuinely curious now for Zoll, does this give him even more power than Thad had at the end? Because I don't think, I mean, if you think about what the business operation entails, unless someone else is going to largely run that, like that's two full-time jobs being put into one. And the last time I checked, there is still only so much time in a day. So my 2 points and one sort of question.
Well, Declan, I'll defer to you enough. Zoll, enough trade calls, enough free agency calls, cultivating relationships with agents, other front offices. So, like, that's not going to slow down. The question is, does it increase? I imagine, Declan, Derek Falvey is still going to have final say. We have the winter meetings coming up in a few weeks. Derek Falvey will be heavily involved in the winter meetings, as will Jeremy Zoll. But Falvey is still going to pull the trigger in the end on, okay, Chris Paddock being traded to you name the franchise. That's not Jeremy Zoll. Still Derek Falvey's final call.
Yeah, I mean, a big reason why they let go of Thad Levine because the other assistants below him or the other people in the organization really have kind of started doing his job. And then once they were going to have a vacancy, everything that I heard and was told, it was just going to be an internal replacement. There was not going to be an external person coming in here, stepping into the job that Thad Levine had prior. And yeah, guys like Adler and Zoll have initiated trade talks and have initiated those conversations before. Yes, Falvey probably still has, final say. I know the Joel Sherman piece of dropping the Correa nugget with New York teams should be interested, or at least checking in on the Twins shortstop is also very interesting timing there too. But this has been something, Derek Falvey taking over as team president. I remember hearing this, I think it was the end of the summer. And Dukes, I know you were kind of hinting at this and had heard similar things in the last few weeks. Yeah, I guess the timing again is a little strange, but at the end of the day, this was something I expect this to happen basically right after the season. But then, we had a coach firing out, then you had a TV structure thing, and now as we get closer to the winter meetings, now they decide to make this decision.
The other name I want to bring up is Sean Johnson, who runs their draft room. So Sean, this was intentional, Judd. All right, that can be our buzzword here. Sean was part of the GM meetings in San Antonio last week. I am digging on this, but I wonder if Sean's influence increases. You think about all the players he's drafted since taking over that draft room in 2017, a part of the organization for much beyond that, but final say guy since 2017. Look at the Twins draft classes since 2017. All the guys, whether here or elsewhere, reaching the major leagues. Sean has a keen eye for talent. I just wonder, I'm opining a bit here. I don't have an insight quite yet, but I just wonder if Sean will have a little bit more influence on the 26-man roster moving forward.
I'm going to ask this question to both Doogie and Declan. Has Derek Falvey, in the 8 seasons he has overseen baseball operations, in which, by the way, if my math is right, the Twins are 46 games above 500 total in the regular season over 8 years, which if you take that win percentage and extrapolate to a 162-game average, the Twins are essentially an 84-win team on average, so slightly above 500 in the 8 years of Derek Falvey. One season over 87 wins, and that was the Bomba squad in 2019. One playoff series victory in 8 years. Certainly not a White Sox level train wreck, but has Derek Falvey shown enough to get more power and control over a Major League Baseball organization?
I mean, I would say fair question. Go ahead, Declan.
I would say the Twins, as we all know, don't love change, even though they are now selling the team, which creates this. That part to me is very interesting because new owners are going to evaluate what I would assume is everything, not just from the baseball operations, probably even more importantly, the front office and the structure of where this team is. And maybe this is kind of the make good of the poll ad saying, no, this guy and Derek Falvey is going to be the president. So maybe there's like a handshake agreement or we're getting closer to something of an ownership transfer. I still think that's long ways out. But if Falvey is the guy, they want to make sure that he is still familiar with the team and they don't want complete total chaos. But I also think that's not really how this works if you're going to end up selling the team anyway. But the Twins historically have not liked change, right? They like to, for God's sakes, I mean, Dave St. Peter has just stepped down, but he's still with another organization, a role with the team. They love to do this. They love to promote from within. They didn't even hire a new GM. They just promoted from someone else. So I think this team and organizations always love status quo, but I do think the timing is very weird, especially if you're going to have a complete new ownership group evaluate everything.
All right, Phil, fair question. My comeback is, okay, highly thought of internally. You go up and down the pecking order in that Twins front office. I'm just telling you, on background, I've never heard a bad word about Derek. You think about the infrastructure he's built, analytical department, just expanding the front office, the relationships he has with other front offices, with agents, massaging that relationship with Rocco, hiring Rocco, then relationships with players, finding that right balance. There's a lot that they like about Derek. The Boston Red Sox, other organizations have tried to pluck him in the past. Certainly the Red Sox had all sorts of interest, but other organizations, cursory interest. You put all that together, there's enough reason to keep him. The question is, do you elevate him? Do you give him this business type power, this Theo Epstein-esque role? That to me is a fair question, because I don't know what his business chops quite are. He's got a great baseball background and analytical background. What sort of background does he have on the business side? That's where I pause.
If I may, the answer is no. It's a flat out no. I don't care if people like him if they don't. Like, what are you like? I understand what they are trying to force. And by the way, the press release that the Twins just put out is intriguing because it says it goes through all of the changes. And then the last sentence of the opening paragraph is all appointments have been approved by Twins control owner Jim Pohlad and club executive chair Joe Pohlad, which means that Jim is back in the room now saying, yeah, this is great, when Jim had said, I don't want nothing to do with this. So like this is clearly
yeah, I've got it right here. Yeah.
It's a setup of this is what we want. But the answer to Phil's question is no, he has not. Doogie's right. We have no idea what his business chops are, but to call a spade right now, running the baseball team was clearly difficult enough. And so, no, the answer is resoundingly no way, no how. Good for the Twins if this is what you want. But I think this is a political move, and I don't think it has a lot to do with the betterment of the baseball team.
I really want to know what exactly he will be doing on the business side, because I think about the next few months, how pivotal these 12 to 15 weeks are. This roster needs help. Maybe doesn't need a ton of help, but needs enough help. What exactly is he doing on the business side of things? Does that take away in any form or fashion?
Well,
what he needs to really focus on is player acquisition.
And Doogie, more importantly, too, who is he delegating to? Or is he going to try and put his fingerprints on everything? At the end of the day, Thad Levine was really good. Like, he was a smart guy. I think he was probably the smartest guy in the building. He carried himself like that.
I don't think probably. I think yes.
But I mean, I never saw.
I didn't need to show it, maybe with the vocabulary at times, but like David Kahn, when he was running the Wolves front office, wanted to show you, even though he wasn't. But you could read through that. I'm the smartest man in the room. Thad Levine, truly the smartest man in the room.
Correct. And at the end of the day, Falvey was like, you know what? I got this, till Thad and the team parted ways. So my question is, are you going to, if you're going to bring in lieutenants on the business side, right? Are you going to bring in people ideally smarter than you, or are you going to bring in people that fall in line? There's a lot of questions here. The good thing is when the team is sold, those questions should be asked by the people that buy the team.
Well, I'm sure they will. Now, I don't sense there's this large ego in play with Derek that he wouldn't bring in somebody that's got more business chops than him. So to answer that part of your inquiry, Judd, that would surprise me. Now, on the ownership front, I still think we're many months out. Steve Greenberg is still a key name to know. All the contacts he has, he's based in New York City. All the contacts he has across the game. When thinking about local ownership, I continue to be told Alex Rodriguez, Mark Laurie, at least right now, no interest in buying the Twins. The Davis family, Marty Davis, if I had to keep an eye on anybody locally, I just don't know if they have quite the money. We're talking at least, $1.5 billion. Plus, I don't think the Pohlads are accepting $1.5 right this second. That's why this is going to be a process. I really do think they want to trump what the Orioles sold for less than a year ago, 171 or 172, somewhere in that vicinity. That ultimately they may need to settle for less than that, but I don't think immediately they are selling the Twins for many, many millions less than what the Orioles sold for.
Let's stay on the Twins here because let's get to this Correa article while we're doing this here. We're sitting here live on the Score North Twin Show YouTube channel, on the Score North YouTube channel. The Twins are making major changes. And Joel Sherman, longtime baseball insider based in New York Post, and he has a piece out from a couple days ago. Yankees Mets should test Twins waters for possible Carlos Correa trade. I'm just going to read you an excerpt from this. So, of course, he says the Mets failed Carlos Correa on a physical less than 2 years ago. Correa was a prominent member of the 2017 Astros, the team most repugnant to Yankees and their fans. So, of course, I want to make a case why both teams should do what I strongly suspect they would never consider, which is call the Twins and find out if they would trade Carlos Correa and if he would agree to play third base. He asked Derek Falvey about this at the GM meetings. And Derek Falvey said, quote, "If they came at us, we're open-minded to anything. Obviously, Carlos has a full no-trade clause. We love him. We're always open-minded when teams hit us up on our players. We've been hit up on Carlos before. We've been hit up on Byron Buxton before." He's just listing all their most expensive players. "We've been hit up on Royce Lewis before. That's not shocking to anybody. We hold an extremely high bar to even start that conversation, and I still feel like those guys are critical to our success." And then there's another partner. This is from this Judd, you emailed this to us. This is from the same article, right? The candy thing.
Yes.
Yep.
Correa is a guy who demanded that candy be taken out of the Twins' food room because it emphasized a lack of seriousness around conditioning and helped Minnesota officials upgrade their advanced scouting procedures to more align with what he knew frontline organizations were doing. So he's been like super hands-on with certain things behind the scenes.
Well, I mean, that's not a bad thing, but we know.
I love
like,
it.
remember, the shoe thing with the heel injury, right? Like, there's a lot there with Carlos Correa. Good, but one could argue some bad as well. The candy thing, that doesn't bother me. Upping the way they advance scout, that doesn't bother me. So to me, that's a positive influence. Okay, emphasis on the no trade part of this. Like, I don't have any evidence to suggest that Carlos Correa right now is willing to move to third base. Plus, do the Yankees or Mets end up signing Alex Bregman, Willie Adames? There's some high-end free agents out there that are open-minded to playing third base. So maybe it's something down the road. I will also add, though, Jack Goyne, who you know, Phil, used to be Terry Ryan's right-hand man. I don't remember.
Well,
what
he
his
was their
title
entire
was.
analytics department about 12 years ago. I love Jack. Yeah, Jack's. Jack's
so
a friend.
anyway, and he scouted for the Diamondbacks, involved in Major League Baseball for a really long time. He tweeted Nick Nelson of Twins Daily the other day when he laid out the Correa story. It was a misguided signing at the time, and all the reasons why are showing up now. So for whatever that's worth, Jack Goyne, former Twins front office executive, he didn't like the Correa signing to begin with. He would absolutely ship Correa off if Correa said, "Yes, I'll accept the trade."
So
Judd, Dax, thoughts?
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm thinking about this. So here's my question.
Same text, St. Peter, 2:00 today.
Yeah.
So here's my question, Doogie. Number one is, do we think that a team would take him? I did not. The Joel Sherman piece also says, and forgive me if you have reported this and it slipped my mind, also says that Correa is dealing with a chronic back problem, which I did not know about, or at least I don't recall. But so would a team take him? That's my first question. And if a team would, how valuable would it be for the Twins, assuming that the payroll is going to stay the same, to free up that much space to have some room to work with? Because the way I see this right now is the Twins have just imposed a salary cap, but they're up against it and they're going to exceed it, so they're going to have to bring it back. But if you could trade the Correa contract, that salary cap is now freed up quite a bit. So, like, there are people that will dismiss this. I don't think that we should dismiss it, but also, is Correa indeed simply a ticking time bomb?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, based on the Giants and Mets failing him in physicals,
Well,
yes.
and the back? I didn't know about the back.
I didn't necessarily know about chronic back issue. Aware of something with the back. I've never heard the word chronic. But hey, I'll tell you this much. I would trade Correa if I knew I was getting like Max Fried or Blake Snell or heck, Corbin Burns. That would be my target. If you then invest that money, if you could convince a guy to come here over other places, okay, you could sell me on that. Royce Lewis, full-time shortstop. Brooks Lee, third base, perhaps. Or maybe it's Royce at second, Brooks Lee at short, Jose Miranda at third. You've got some potential moving parts there. What's the future of Eddie Julian? Could he play first base? Do you trade Eddie Julian? You've got some options, plus Luke Keeschel, who played in the futures game. I think the ceiling is relatively high on that Twins prospect. I'm just saying,
Right.
like, I'd be open-minded. If Correa would waive the no trade, if you could work out a trade, as long as you're investing that money. If the idea is the payroll comes back to
good luck with
110 million or something like that, then no, absolutely not.
Well,
because Correa was still, everything we're saying, Correa was still their MVP in 2024.
This gets at a very, very interesting question now. So Dave has been, and look, I mean, Dave has been criticized before, blamed for things. So I'm not trying to imply that he has not been a lightning rod. He has been at times. But if Derek Falvey is going to become the president of the team, so business ops, baseball ops, the poll ads are about to sell. Bye-bye. What makes us think that the Twins are for sure, other than a source? Remember, it wasn't Joe. It was a source saying the payroll is expected to, or the payroll is going to remain about the same late Sunday. I believe it was the last game of the season or before. What makes us completely buy that the payroll will stay status quo when, need I remind you guys, the TV revenue is going to go from what I would approximate to be about 40 mil last year to we have no idea and they don't know. Like, are we buying completely that this payroll stays the same? Or at the end of the day, if Derek Falvey is cussed up and down for, the sources lied, does he even care that much?
I mean, I think in the end, the payroll is going to be about the same. But do I know that 100%? Heck no. I mean, what they said on September 28th or whatever that Saturday was.
Correct.
There's fluidity to that. That doesn't mean that's the answer on November 12th or December 12th or February 12th. So remains to be seen. But as far as I can tell, I don't think they are trading Correa. They don't feel like they're that far away. Some tweaking. Yes, we are going to see a move or two. I can see a Chris Paddock trade happening, right? They are going to work the trade market. Maybe later on, work the free agent market. I can tell you, just being in contact with some agent friends, some logical pitching candidates. I'm not talking Fried or Burns, okay? But middle tier guys, I've checked on a number of those guys, crickets. There's no Twins interest to this day, but we all get Major League Baseball free agency is a slow process. Maybe that eventually ramps up. But until I hear otherwise, Judd, until I have enough evidence to suggest otherwise, I think the payroll is going to be in that $130 million range.
Yeah, I think it all starts with if Correa's interested in a trade. The problem is if the moment it leaks out that Correa actually wants out, that becomes a bigger problem because now the return also becomes even more complicated. So not only is he making a lot of money, not only is his ankle a ticking time bomb, and maybe both ankles or both foots are now ticking time bomb with plantar fasciitis in both of them over the last 2 seasons, but if he publicly requests it gets out, that becomes even more complicated. I think it starts with Correa. If Correa is looking at this and saying, you know what, you're not going to add to it, we didn't make any moves at the deadline. If we're not pushing forward, then I don't want to be here. This dude's a hyper-competitive athlete, and he's certainly, even though he's won a World Series and has had a prolific playoff career, he has no business in it being for a middling team that doesn't want to push for championship aspirations. So that's the interesting part here. I think Correa is willing to probably stick around, but if he's looking around and saying, I don't want to do this, trade me, then this becomes very interesting for the Twins.
I mean, you're not getting a big return, though, Declan. Unless you're eating a chunk of the contract, it would be about just dumping the contract. It's not like you're getting the Mets' number 2 prospect or, two guys in the Yankees' top 7 or top 8. I mean, call me nuts. I just don't think the return would be sizable for Correa. It would be about getting out from underneath the contract.
Yeah. I mean, the fact that a bunch
and that's
of teams...
why to me it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because he still is a really productive player. So to me, it's a cool article. Joel Sherman does a good job. I enjoy watching him on MLB Network, but I'm not buying it right now. I'm not.
The fact that teams were super nervous about his health 2-3 years ago, and now he's older, has had more health issues, has not been able to play full seasons, and is even more expensive on a per year basis, not the full length of the contract. You'd have to eat. If you were willing to eat a bunch of money, obviously the return goes up, but I just don't know I don't know how much of this they're going to swallow. I mean, I would be willing to swallow money to get a couple great young players if that was the trade-off, but it's not my money, and they're trying to sell this organization and have a bottom line that looks nice and tidy for whoever the bidders are. So, yeah, just wow, what an interesting start to the offseason for the Twins here. We're going to get to a few more scoops from
It has,
Yuki's
but this
Scoop
doesn't
Bag.
compare. Like today, Phil, this doesn't compare to the bombshell of, hey, emphasis again on exploring, by the way, because it's going to be a bit here, but the sale process, right? Like today's news, I don't think is some sort of, whoa, holy crap. At least for me, maybe for some of the audience, and I get that, and I respect that, but just among us, I don't know. Like, are you shocked by today's news?
I think whether we're shocked that the news came out or not is irrelevant. I think the fact that this organization just said goodbye to its longest tenured pillar as president and elevated Derek Falvey from being quite frankly, a pedestrian baseball ops overseer relative to the rest of the teams in baseball and doubled the amount of power he has.
Yeah.
Do you? I mean, Doogie, they are averaging 84 wins per season.
I know. Define pedestrian.
They are not one of the most highly regarded franchises in baseball in any department. They aren't. They're not. They don't win at a high level. They certainly don't perform in the postseason at a high level. And they've been duped multiple times by injured returns on trades. Like, I don't think it's controversial to say that Derek Falvey is not one of the highest regarded baseball ops people in the league. Unless you have a bunch of people outside of the Twins organization. I don't care what people inside the organization say. Of course they're going to pump his tires.
Semantics on the definition of pedestrian. Like, to me, he's not in my top 5 if I'm making a list, right? But I also don't think he's 21st.
So if he's not a top 5 baseball operations person, why are we doubling or more his bandwidth and workload? Why? So, okay, you're not elite at this thing. Theo Epstein, you know what? I think we could probably stand to give you some more, some more territory in the organization. I think stretching him even more thin. Put it this way: you better love the guys under. You better love Jeremy Zoll. You better love the guys underneath him, because I feel like Derek's plate has been really full looking forward, just to keep this team as a fringe playoff team going forward. And now he's taking on Dave St. Peter's role. Like, I don't know, man. It doesn't smell right to me.
No, and that's fine. And I'm glad we went live to lay all this out. I'm still most fascinated by who a year from now, November 2025, who is owning the team at that point. That, to me, is what I'm fascinated most about. Then everything else will trickle in thereafter.
Yeah.
I just think that the whole thing comes down to this is the Polad's preferred plan. This also, I'm telling you, this also makes it easier to make decisions that the fans are going to hate for now. And at the end of the day, there is a chance that people come in here, buy this team, and blow everybody out. But if this thing is, you got to keep going down the fact of stripping this thing to the studs financially it creates a better business venture for the person that buys it. Because then they can just start from down here, which is fine, right? Like this is a business, nothing more. And unfortunately, it's not like the Twins have this great history of, multiple championships. And my God, we've been competitive. We've been to we've been to 5 World Series in the past 10 years or 3 World Series. So I am very leery now because Falvey can operate in a way that I don't think Dave St. Peter was comfortable operating. That's what worries me here. But it's their choice.
We'll see. Yeah.
Their choice.
All right, we do have to run. Dukes, great stuff here. Any final scoops for the road here on this Tuesday scoop session?
All right, well, I tweeted a few people on Friday, but I'll put it out there in a much more public forum that the back and forth, A-Rod, Lori, Taylor at the Frederickson law offices in downtown Minneapolis, that part is over. It's now in the hand of the 3 arbitrators. And talking to Joseph Daly, William Mitchell, College of Law. And heck, when I spoke with him at his house a couple of weeks ago, he took a break from writing an arbitration decision. So this is more generally speaking, but he said it can actually take up to 60 days. So I know I floated 30 days a few weeks ago. It can actually be longer than that. But Daly also made the point to me, Phil, that, hey, when there's this much money at stake, when there's this much community interest in play, he'd be surprised if it went into the new year. Like if we're sitting here on January 11th or 12th, wondering, okay, where is this decision?
Yeah.
He would be very, very surprised. No surprise. None of the parties are talking. So this is more second hand, third hand, but both parties feel relatively good about how last week went, especially the Lori A-Rod side. But I'd love to talk to one of those guys more firsthand, right? So it's more hearsay, but I think there's some confidence for sure, as I've laid out for weeks prior to last week, that, hey, Lori and A-Rod have one heck of a case. And so nothing has changed in that regard. Gophers men's basketball, Mike Mitchell Jr., pretty good ankle injury on Saturday, the win over Omaha. The good news, I'm told, nothing is broken, but when talking about, a sprain, that could still take some time. Frank Mitchell with the shoulder making progress. Tyler Cochran still a few weeks out. So it's possible they play North Texas tomorrow at the Barn without 3 key contributors. But thankfully, all expected back at some point in the next 4 to 6 weeks. We're not talking season-ending injuries.
Darren Doogie Wolfson. Little hybrid scoop session and a Score North Twins show here, Dukes. We'll see you again on Thursday, sir.
Sounds good, boys. We'll talk on Thursday. Reckless Speculation
right.
Thursday. Always appreciate it.
Damn right. Darren Doogie Wolfson from the 5 Eyewitness News Department. All right. Well, for those of you hanging out with us here, a rare live scoop session and a hybrid Score North Twin show here with major shakeups in the organization. If you haven't already, click that subscribe button, by the way, on the Score North Twin Show YouTube channel. We just launched it about 7-8 months ago. Over 4,000 subscribers, so thank you guys for helping us grow that thing. And we'll see you later in the week on the Score North Twin Show, and we'll see you tomorrow on Minnesota Sports with Mackie and Judd for some Write That Down action.